Hello, everybody. Welcome to New Normal, how live streaming is evolving. It is fabulous to be here with three incredible people who I admire and respect personally, professionally, musically. And it's an honour to be gathering here on the land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nations. I would like to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to acknowledge that there was such a rich history and tradition of oral culture way, way, way before, long before we white folk arrived, and that still continues. And it's in that spirit that I'd like to have this yarn today. A big shout out and welcome to any First Nations people who are streaming anywhere in the world and also here today with us. It's a pleasure and an honour to have you here with us. So I will kick off by introducing these incredible humans. Allara, to my right here. Allara is a Yorta Yorta musician, composer, filmmaker and involved in the climate justice movement. Using a double bass and loop station at the core, she is inspired by ancient oral traditions and is a natural storyteller. Allara harnesses hard-hitting spoken word, taking the listener on a journey reflecting cultural, spiritual and environmental empowerment. Gently lulling audiences into a united chorus of unadorned melodies, her sound is unique and soul-stirring. Welcome, Allara.
Thank you so much for having me.
Eliza Hull on the end here is a musician, writer, disability activist and an audio producer, and probably many, many more things. Eliza Hull's music is not for the weak-hearted. A stirring and captivating songwriter, Eliza has been responsible for the creation of music that hits straight to the core of the listener. Eliza Hull is known for her stirring lyrics and haunting vocals, and after a recent shift to Castlemaine, Eliza's music has developed into a rich soundscape of indie folk tinged tracks, which showcase her development as a songwriter. Eliza's latest EP, How We Disappeared, is an indie folk tinged, brilliantly crafted offering. For this release, Eliza linked up with acclaimed producer-engineer John O'Steer, Greta Ray and Ainsley Wills, among others, who produced and engineered the EP in a studio in Castlemaine. Welcome,
Thank
Eliza.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
And James Seymour, who is not a stranger to these parts. After writing and performing in bands and running his own project Fields over the past decade, James has progressed his skills in the recording world and has worked, written and produced with the likes of Merri-bek, Kit, Eaglemont, Liv Cartledge, Lonnie Ray Thompson and many more. He now resides at Small Time in Brunswick, where we are today, where he runs the recording studio and production team. Welcome, James.
Thanks for having me.
Have I missed anything from your bios? No, have you?
All good.
Cool. I also just want to thank Small Time for having us here today, also Brunswick Music Festival and Milk Records. My brain is like autumn leaves, so I just might forget later on to thank everybody for having us. It's also quite meta that we are talking today about live streaming while live streaming. But yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here and to be here with such amazing humans. So welcome. So obviously live streaming has, taken off last year for very good and practical and obvious reasons. It, kept us connected. And live streaming isn't all that new, but this new era where we sort of used it as a lifeline while we were all sort of spread out physically and sometimes emotionally. So I'd like to talk today about tricks and tips and how best to do it, unpack the where and whys. Is there still a place for it? Are we fatigued? And if there are any questions, you're really welcome to either speak to Jake, who's out there in the audience at Small Time, or else there's a stream on Facebook, on the Brunswick Music Festival Facebook and Small Time. You're welcome to leave your comments and questions there, and we will get to them at the end. So, let us begin. So we'll start with you, Allara.
Sure.
So you've been involved in many number of different streams. Can you start by telling us what were some of the key differences and what you took from them?
Yep. So I was involved in so many different live streams, like from one end of the spectrum to the complete other end. And they were also different, and I enjoyed them all in really different ways. And some of them I didn't enjoy at all.
Can you sort of name drop or tell us what
Yep.
they actually,
Yeah, so I think for me, the most connected I felt to the audiences were live streams like the Isolate. So thank you for starting that up. That was amazing. Because with the Isolate, you can see people responding, and because music is about connecting not just to our soul and to the story that we're trying to express, but the sharing of that journey with an audience. And so I found some of the other performances that I did that were more corporate. So I did a few corporate live streams, and they were on platforms like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And they weren't good because you can't see the audience.
Right.
And you don't know, if they're enjoying it or what they're feeling, or even if it sounds good. Whereas, because you have the connection with Isolate, and it's really accessible. So I've watched all this different range of live streams and know how it sounds, know how it feels, know how I interact with it, and how that whole circular thing goes. But with some of the more corporate ones, you couldn't really tell if people were enjoying it.
So with the Isolate one, just so for people who are here or streaming elsewhere, so that was sort of straight to your Instagram account?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And what was the setup for the corporate ones? Did you have special?
Yeah. I try, honestly, like every live stream I did, I had a different audio setup for, because with my playing with the double bass, something that I was really worried about was that you wouldn't be able to feel that that girth of the double bass and those low frequencies, because as a listener of music, I don't generally listen to music unless I've got good speakers, either in the studio, in the car, or the next level down is a UE boom or a Bluetooth speaker that's got good bass, or headphones. And then the last, this sort of worst version of listening for me is just on the phone without any stuff. And because Isolate, you're generally watching on your phone, I found that a lot of people were watching the Isolate through Apple Air TV, so connected to their computers, because I'm always saying, can you please link it into your headphones or to your speakers, otherwise you're going to miss the core of what this is for me, which is the bass.
Yeah.
I was really worried about not being able to feel that, and so I tried all these different ways of linking in the audio to the phone or to the computer. I was lucky enough to get one of the music grants, which was available due to the COVID, and I bought a new computer. So I ended up, the second half of COVID, I had another computer and a mixer, and then all my gear. So I was because I use my computer for keys and stuff when I'm playing in my setup, so I couldn't live stream and use my computer for the same thing. So when I had a second computer, then I got a second computer, and it was much easier because I had a camera, I had this set up here, I had this live streaming thing, and then my performance rig.
Yep.
And not everybody has have the privilege or has the resources or facilities for that. So in that case, I had these little knickknacks down here and figured out the best ways.
Do you want to show us some of your
You want
toys?
to now? I don't want to talk too much.
No, we've got time.
But through some research I did, is I realised that because I got a new iPhone during COVID too, I was I'm going to be a filmmaker. And I got this iPhone, the new one, and got this gimbal that in April last year, and was I'm going to make my own video clips and everything, and didn't do that.
But you've got a cool phone.
I got a cool phone. But what I realised, because it's an iPhone 10, I think, and it's only got the one hole.
Yeah. Bloody Apple.
Bloody Apple. And so instead of having the audio, and I'm really bad at talking about it. Like, I kind of get it when I'm like plugging it all in, and some tech heads out there will probably be able to explain it better than I can. But I realize it's a TRRS connection that I need, so a converter. Mm-hmm. So a TRS to TRRS, because the hole that the iPhone has, it's a mic and a headphone, so it's a different thing, which is why it's got the 3 bands around the little jigger instead of the 2, which is like the balanced cable.
Yeah.
If I said that right, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, I did okay.
People out there are nodding.
Yeah. So, yeah, having one of those, I tried a bunch of these, and I tried a few others, a TRRS with a headphone and the jack.
Were these expensive things?
Oh, yeah, I wasted so much money online shopping for all these random bits. I did one illegal drive to Manny's, a couple of Ks out of my 5K radius.
For the sake of your art.
For the sake of the art. Anyway, yeah.
So what are some sort of tips or tricks that, like, if people, musicians just, want to stream live on whatever platform, either basic equipment or some do's and don'ts or any sort of wisdom you could impart?
Probably for me, the biggest thing that I learnt was that I didn't really like live streaming.
Yeah.
It's probably not the right thing to say on a live streaming thing.
No, it absolutely is.
But I think finding something that works for you. So with my setup with the double bass and the keys and stuff, like, it didn't really work because to connect, like, I wanted to be close. Like, when I was watching live streams, I wanted to be close to the person. I wanted to be like FaceTiming with them. So I couldn't do that because I was so far away. But what I got out of it was I was able to see myself and what I look like when I'm performing. So I was able to, like, try out different hand movements and different kind of physicality to go with the music, which was really beneficial.
That's cool.
And has helped then not being able to see myself and then watching back on videos, I'm like, oh, yeah, that looks okay.
Yep.
But being able to connect with the audience and, like, look into the camera and be able to read the comments in the Instagram is cool. And in the end, I worked out, I tried all these different sound checks with different audio people, and it ended up that my phone was having the best sound.
Okay.
So even after all this gear, my phone actually had really good sound in the end, and people couldn't really notice that we're just listeners, like, outside of, like, really music head people who were like, I want the crispiest audio.
Yep.
People didn't really know, I think, in the end.
Okay. So use your phone.
Use your phone. Make it easy.
Yep.
And enjoy it.
Have fun. So, Eliza, you produced and curated a pre-recorded stream, Accessible All Areas. Can you start by telling us what that was and also what your thoughts were sort of about live stream versus pre-recorded, because Accessible All Areas was the latter, it was pre-recorded. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, what was the process and how did you come to making that decision?
Okay, well, that idea was created when I was having a shower. And
thoughts.
I always come up with good ideas in the shower. And I just realised that COVID had presented me with the realisation that disabled people often don't get to access live music. And I noticed that more and more within the community because people were saying that they could suddenly access, the doctor. Like, why did we need a pandemic to show us that you can, have telehealth, or you can be on Zoom and see your doctor and you don't, have to travel outside your home? And so I realised very quickly that it was a chance to reach those audiences that don't get to access live music because of the many barriers that the world presents, and also a way that I could represent more disabled musicians because often disabled musicians are, underrepresented. And so I had that idea and ended up bringing you, Emily, and wanted to pair with you with Isolate. And I think, we ended up creating something together that I was really very, very proud of because many disabled people said how great it was to be able to be at home during a pandemic and not only see themselves represented on the screen, but also learn and also get to be in the comfort of their own home and not have to face the barriers that disabled people face, whether that be stairs or physical barriers or, you know, getting onto a tram that you can't get on because you're a wheelchair user or, you know, having sensory overload or lighting or being deaf and not having an Auslan interpreter. So it was really incredible. I think both of us got those messages from disabled people saying it was so good to be able to feel like they could access live music at that moment. The reason that I ended up not opting to do it live, I really ummed and ahed about that. But there were too many things, I think because of the accessible layers that needed it. Actually, I've found a way to now do it, but that's a lot of learning and researching. But there was captioning happening. There was an Auslan interpreter happening. There were 3 artists that were in multiple different time zones all around the world. There was me there and all of us, you know, needing to do audio descriptions, and all of those layers meant that to do that live, it could have gone really, really wrong, and I wasn't willing to really take that chance at that moment. It was already too stressful. But yeah, now in retrospect, I think it's definitely possible to have all of those elements, to have someone doing captioning live, that's possible.
Yeah.
To have someone that is doing Auslan interpreter, having them live. At that time, we couldn't because of the COVID lockdowns. Getting people in a room was impossible. But yeah, I think to incorporate an Auslan interpreter within the show is actually possible, and also really exciting to present that that's possible for people.
And so on a tech side, what was that sort of set up, and did you have other people involved, and was it sort of just primitive into a phone, or was there higher tech gear?
So yeah, we used DSLR cameras, digital cameras, all of us. Ruth Parker was a UK disabled artist. Galen was an American disabled artist, and she used her phone. And then there was also James, who's deaf, and he's a musician, and he had a camera at home. And so what we did, we ended up setting the camera above the computer and looking into the camera, but recording it on Zoom as well, so that we could hear each other during the interview. And then had someone edit it using Zoom as like the template as to how, because it was recorded live, it wasn't recorded, you know. Yeah, so I was at the piano, interviewed that artist, then got the next person on the line, so it was like linear. And so the editor that then edited it used the Zoom to line it all up, and then added captioning, which was, I didn't realise how much of a big process captioning was. That was literally me writing out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Manually writing out.
Yeah, so I had to, because, for instance, the songs, you had to do that for the lyrics, and then he had a program that would do like not a great version of it at all. Like terrible version of it, and then going through the whole, I think it was an hour, wasn't it? Yeah. Going through the whole hour and rewriting it, fixing it, and then getting the Auslan interpreter to record herself at her house, and then placing that within the video.
So how long did it take for the whole process for this 1 hour of footage?
Well, look, it was recorded very, very quickly. Like, it only took an hour to record. But the whole after process, there was a lot of editing, probably a couple of weeks of adding the Auslan interpreter. She had problems with her camera and, you know, sent it and it didn't work. And because also when you're making sure that you're being accessible for disabled people, you can't just have an Auslan interpreter that's, not visible, or you have
Yeah.
to really make sure that if you're going to have those accessible elements that you do it properly.
Yeah.
Because that's only fair. And yeah.
Well, congratulations. It was utterly amazing. And
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. But yeah, segueing into the accessible sort of elements of the stream, what are some sort of non-negotiable, or just what are some basic things that people can do to make a stream more accessible?
Audio descriptions. So I was going to suggest that we do an audio description. Maybe we could all do one if you don't mind. I might just do it now.
Absolutely.
So I'm a white female. I have my hair up in a bun. I'm wearing headphones. I'm sitting actually on a wooden chair in front of a black microphone, and I'm wearing black jeans and a floral top. And I've got hooped earrings on. So that is an audio description for people with low vision or people who are blind. And that's an accessible way to reach that audience and to make them feel included. Also, Auslan interpreter for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, captioning. And I think there's a misconception that if you have an Auslan interpreter, you don't need captioning, but not all of the deaf community use Auslan. So captioning is another way. If you are going to perform at a venue, asking them what their their accessible features are. So, for instance, do they have stairs? How does a disabled person get there? Is there a tram that goes out the front? Is that tram accessible? If there are stairs, how many stairs there are? And asking that venue, can you put that up on your website?
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's not up to the disabled person to always seek out that information, it should always be on that website. What disabled people will encounter when they come to that venue. So that's another way. But live streaming as well. Like, I don't think after COVID this should finish. Really, I think could be a missed opportunity to reach disabled people if we don't continue to have live music where we have an audience,
Mm-hmm.
but also offer that as a live stream so that people at home can access it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I hope
That's
that
amazing.
continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I want to give a visual description.
Yeah.
My name's Emily Ulman, by the way. I didn't introduce myself to begin with, but hi. I am wearing a fluorescent orange top, striped green and gold pants, sneakers. I have a microphone in front of me. I'm holding notes, cheat sheets. But James, I'd like to introduce you and welcome you. So you were on the production team for Delivered Live, which was a stream filmed in a studio with full crew, audio, filming gear. Can you tell us some more about the series in terms of setup and your contribution and what was involved behind the scenes?
For sure. Before I start, I'll do an audio description. I am a white male. I have medium-length brown hair, wearing headphones, green shirt on and black jeans and some Blundstones. Also sitting on a chair like everyone in the room. Yes, I was part of Delivered Live through the first big lockdown, which was an initiative to kind of bring back some life into the music industry, live performance, which was so missed, as everyone knows, and such a hard thing for a musician and everyone around that involved in shows to kind of take a hit from. So that was the idea, to kind of engage with people who kind of were left with not much during lockdown. So we actually, so small time where we are today, we launched 3 weeks before the lockdown started. So we were set up to do streaming before that happened. So we had a little crew, film crew and audio crew that we then transplanted to the Delivered Live team, which was hosted at Harry the Hirer in Richmond, I think. So they'd also lost all work, so that engaged a lot of people within their company. And so it was a bit tough initially for us to kind of take what we have in this tiny little fishbowl and then kind of put it into this big corporate production world. It took a bit of tweaking, but we got there in the end, and it was week to week, and it became such a cool team to be a part of, and like have new artists roll through every week, and our squad really kind of learnt how each other worked off the back of that, and we'd learn things on the go, and it was great for us to kind of bond in that way and come back here and use some skills that we learnt over there. So it was a pretty crazy experience, to be honest, but definitely worthwhile, and I think artists and everyone involved got something out of it for sure.
Cool, thank you. And so small time, so you were responsible for all of the filming and the audio side of the streams, is that?
At Delivered Live?
Yeah.
So myself, I was just kind of managing our team. So they had a separate audio team come in. I can't remember where they were from, but it was like an audio company that came in and bought all their gear and set up within the space, and then our crew was just video. So I was kind of running the switching and the video production, and then we had a rotating crew of 3 every week that would hold the cameras and we'd speak to each other on headsets and like direct each other where to go. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So if live streaming is going to stick around, and I agree with Eliza, I think it absolutely should. So what are some, because you obviously have a very you're just very knowledgeable and very tech savvy, but what are some kind of tips and tricks, or what are some simple things that people can do to make sure that their streams look and sound as good as possible?
I guess, I mean, we've spoken already, or you guys have spoken about like accessibility and people not having, a lot of gear and things like that. I guess the number one thing that I'd kind of propose would just be to think about the space that you're doing it in, because the space actually really affects the sound that you're kind of putting forward. So, if you, for example, you did it in a gymnasium, you'd hear it wouldn't be very good. But so maybe thinking about like what you could do to deaden the sound in a room, or place yourself in a space that's a bit smaller, and and there are free programs around that you can run microphones and even your phone into a computer that kind of brings it all together and allows you to like see it and marry them up and then stream. There's one called OBS, which is free and you can download it, and there's heaps of tutorials online on how to use it. And we use one called Wirecast, but OBS is great for doing exactly the same thing. And I know Twitch has incorporated that side of it into their streaming as well. Like you can plug in microphones and your iPhone camera, or even just your iPhone, and then that you can manage that and kind of go from there rather than just pressing a button on your phone. If you wanted to dive into like the sound side of things, or how it looked or whatever. But
Could I add to that?
Please.
Yeah,
Please do.
I looked a lot into the different versions of streaming stuff, and I had this really funny cup of tea breakfast thing with Randy Feltface, and I was like, I really want to have good sound for this gig, and I was like super excited because it was being streamed across the US. Like, well, he's got big audience across the world, and I was like, I really want it to be really good sound, and so I like got everything organized, and I really wanted to stream it through OBS or something like that from my laptop with a good camera. But what I realized is that that I couldn't do, how with Instagram you can do the chat, the two people live at the same time. So the audio worked, everything worked perfectly through the phone for just one person on the screen to be live streaming. But as soon as you bring a second person in, because you're now also listening back as well as putting in to the to the phone, then it didn't work. So OBS wasn't an option for that, like the Q&A kind of Instagram live situations. But I think it's a really good option for live streaming outside of that.
Yeah, I suppose that's something that I've done a lot of research on as well, just kind of having to do it through this space and delivered live.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you, when things like that happen and you need to incorporate more video feeds or more audio feeds, things get a bit more convoluted, and you have to bring in separate programs like recording software that then works inside of that, and it becomes quite technical. So I think there is an opportunity for something to be out there that kind of fills that little void that kind of is simple to use, like your phone, but a little bit better quality, kind of incorporates all the things that we've been talking about, without adding 4 programs or or like having to set up a mic and stuff.
Yeah, so like one of these little cable things that could just do all the things.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be so great.
Let's invent that and make our millions.
Yeah.
I'll just add my name to the patent there.
So James, do you have any feeling about whether pre-recorded or live streams are the way to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's going to be a better performance overall and you're more comfortable, I'm all for pre-record, because at the end of the day, like, it needs to translate the way that you want it to, and if that kind of gets lost with a live stream, I think it's kind of important to spend the time to make it look and feel like you and sound good and all that stuff. So and you can still stream it live. You can run it through OBS and the pre-record, and
we definitely did that
which
a
happens. And personally, I think watching that, I'm not really phased whether it's like live. I mean, certain instances for sure, like something like this where you tune in, it makes sense to be live.
Yeah.
But if it's a performance or something, I think it's worth spending the time.
Yeah.
To make it look good and sound good.
Yeah. I'm a bit torn. I love that sort of live engagement and interaction, and then you're like interacting with the artist and with the other people in the stream, and I love that sort of immediate, and also that sort of sense of insecurity and unpredictability, and that kind of excites me. But I've definitely, like, there was the Angie McMahon pre-recorded live stream that was just stunning. Do any of you have examples of like your favourite streams or streams that were done particularly well in the last year?
Yeah, I watched a Mild Life one. I think I don't know if they launched something, but they did a set that they'd obviously spent, days pre-producing, and I was watching it. I'm like, this can't be live. This is so good. So I don't know if it was.
Was that like at Nightcat or Colour? Or?
It might have been, yeah. And I was watching it going, oh man, we need to step up at small time. But I think that might have been pre-record.
So but like multi-camera angles and...
Yeah, and they were kind of embedding them within the screens, and
that's cool.
And there was like lighting cues and stuff. And I thought that was really cool. See, that's the type of thing I feel you should spend time on if it's going to have that effect. But then you do lose that engagement thing for sure, which is what you go to see a gig for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allara, do you have a stream on tonight?
Yeah, so I'm going to be in 2 places tonight, on the internet.
On the couch.
And at the beach. Yeah. Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be asked to play for the Melbourne Recital Centre. They did a number of live streams, which was, I think, funded by some of their arts members. And it was recorded in December, I think, or November or December. And it's really weird, I think, having that live stream pre-record and then it going on air like much later. So if you tune in to watch that tonight, you'll find a link in my bio. You can really tell.
Was that filmed in a studio or did you film it yourself?
The Melbourne Recital Centre, no, it was filmed at the Recital Centre.
Yep.
Yeah, when we were finally allowed to leave the house, and I went out and they recorded that. And something that I think I've taken for granted a bit in my life is the skill and professionalism of sound people and audio, whole AV. Like, I had no idea how much work was being done for a performance until I pre-recorded a couple of videos myself for some live streams, and I recorded that was one that Brent Watkins, Culture Evolves, and I did, and I'd had 3 cameras set up just in this tiny little studio in my house, and was recording the audio through like a Zoom mic and we did these videos, and then I got on the computer and was like editing all the videos together and was like, I don't know how to color grade. I was like, this looks terrible. And by then, like, we'd spent hours setting it up and getting the lights in the right spot and making the studio not look like it was just a disheveled room that wasn't really a studio at that point in time.
You sort of touched on before that you don't love live streaming. Does that mean that, so are you going to make it part of your practice? Are you going to be selective?
Yeah, for me, I think some of the really nice live streams that I enjoyed were, I did one with Refuge for the North Melbourne Arts House, which was really great. So they did a live streaming series about the pandemic and things. And so I wrote a new song about how I was feeling about the pandemic and what I was going through. And that was all accessibility, and it was really fantastic. And the way they went about organising it. So I'd went in for a rehearsal so that they could test all the cameras and the videos and the audio with my setup of the loop station. And I was like, I don't know what you guys want from me. And I was suddenly going from a place where I'd be taking a bass amp and all this stuff to a gig, realising that I didn't have to take all that stuff. And I was like, and that was when I realised I could just ask for a PA.
Yeah.
Or just have audio directly out of my loop station or whatever. And they asked me for the lyrics and everything, so I've started been asking more questions of is it going to be Auslan interpreted event? Is it going to be live captioned? And having lyrics and everything prepared, ready to send across, so that is going to be something that's more accessible. I've heard through someone who I work with, she's like an Auntie Nancy Bates who works with the Deadly Deaf Mob community, and they've been really trying to express that we need to do better. Mm-hmm. And I'm so I'm going into this new normal where even maybe still doing some live streams and some live performances, but hoping and trying to manifest opportunities so that the music is accessible to everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And incorporating different parts like dance that is presenting the art, that it can be absorbed in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think live streaming is really important. And after the Isolate set that I did, the very first one, I think I had 50 new likes on my profile. So in terms of reaching audiences, it's a really fantastic tool. Mm-hmm. And to be able to see other artists in other countries, I think around the country is totally amazing when you actually can't go to these different places. And I was just so grateful because I work a lot in Adelaide, and not being able to go over to Adelaide was really, really hard for me because of the relationships and the music and that I have over there. And so when I could tune into these gigs across in Adelaide, and they started live streaming but also having audiences, so you really felt like you were part of the event, because it wasn't just the video of the artist, but you could be a part of that whole audience. And so that was really nice while we were still in that kind of big lockdown, that second one. They were kind of coming out, and it was this is nice to be a part of this even though we're still stuck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so on that, sort of, how do you three measure the success of a stream? Is it new followers? Is it the access? Is it the time people spend on the stream? Is it, your enjoyment? What are your sort of measures of success?
I think definitely access is probably number one. Mm-hmm. Like you said, around the globe is pretty amazing. Especially live, and for that to become some sort of normal or is pretty cool. And Yeah, for me, I think that's number one, for sure. And to be able to showcase what you're about, not just locally, is great.
I think everything you said is kind of what I measure the success on. Definitely the accessible, if it's, reaching audiences that can't access live music for whatever reason. I guess I measured the success of accessible all areas around how much feedback you and I, Emily, got from disabled people saying that it was accessible for them, and also non-disabled people saying that they learnt a lot from because it was a conversation as well as music, and artists coming forward and saying, I had no idea that it's hard for you to get on stage, or I had no idea that Galen would have to be lifted in her wheelchair on stage, and actually if I'm non-disabled and I'm an artist, and I can do something about that potentially.
Yeah, the conversations that ensued were just exceptional. I just learnt so much, and on Twitter people were just sort of conversing and sort of talking about sort of minimum requirements and just sort of things that weren't as openly spoken about. It was really quite amazing. Are you going to do another one, another accessible?
Well, never say never. What do you think, Emily? We're going to do another one. Yeah, I think. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you were such a great interviewer. Like, it was just people's absolutely incredible stories, and you really elicited something incredibly beautiful. And I think sort of coming from a place of your own experience was really important.
Yeah, thanks for that. I do care a lot, and I was seeking out the information myself from all those artists, so I was as intrigued as everyone at home, and it's so important to hear unique perspectives around music and the arts industry, and disabled people are underrepresented. So I was curious. I was as curious, and I think hopefully that showed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is there a place that if we missed this live stream that we can go back and have a rewatch?
Yes, Facebook is on my Facebook, Eliza Hull, and also Isolade's.
Yeah,
still
and I
there.
highly, highly recommend you check it out. It's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are our feelings about the place of live streaming going forward? You're all musicians in your own right, so are you going to incorporate it into your practice? Are you going to focus on IRL live shows more so, or offer both? Or how are you feeling into this COVID new normal?
I think that something that, for me, the success of what a live stream is kind of more knowing that you got that connection with the audience and knowing that our stories are coming through. And so I think something that Brent and I talked about a lot during that period was that we see our music and our dance as that cultural practice and as ceremony. Mm-hmm. So not feeling like when you don't have anyone connect to, or when they're separated by the screen, it didn't really feel like we were doing ceremony. It kind of was just like we felt kind of disjointed and a bit disconnected from our mob and from culture. So I think we enjoyed when we were able to come together to do it. But when I was doing my solo ones, it was much more difficult. But the success for me was when I was able to read through people's comments or hear what they thought, or that they were learning something and that they connected with the music. But I think going forward, it's definitely like some of the live streams that I did the NAIDOC Week 2020 at the Arts Centre Melbourne.
Yep.
And that whole performance was like live streamed and recorded, I think, the day in a couple of days leading up to the event that was live streamed. And it was I saw it as such a huge success because not only we had like thousands and thousands of views of watching Aboriginal artists, but it was such a beautiful opportunity for us to have something really beautiful that we could put in our portfolio of saying, you know, this is who I am and this is what I do. So I think having the opportunity to continue doing some live streaming, but using each of the different aspects of the live streaming for their relative gain. So like,
do you mean sort of having the product afterwards, like of your performance,
Yeah.
to then be able to send out to
Yeah.
festival programmers
Yeah.
and venue bookers, and
Yeah.
I think that's also a really beautiful side effect of having these streams.
Yeah. So yeah, still I think definitely being able to use both is really important. Having that Instagram live or the Facebook live, because that's like a direct connection to your audience, whereas it takes, you kind of are removed a little bit. There was one live stream that it was a pre-record and I sent it in, and something on the other end had stuffed up, and they'd like cut off, it was for I won't name the festival, but it was for a festival, and the moderator or the like host had something in their back end went wrong, and they cut off one of my songs in the middle of a song, and it was like I felt like my heart was being ripped out. I was like, you can't stop me mid-song. I was like, what are you doing? And I was really, really upset about that, and it kind of ruined my night, and I was like, I'm never doing a live stream again. Because having passed on the pre-record, I had no control over. I think I just felt so powerless and like in the middle of a lockdown, and I was like, I can't go out, I can't connect. Just knowing that you're working with people that you trust, and that are double checking everything, because it was such a stressful time and things happening all very fast.
I think that would be
quality control.
I think that would be my tip for people, just to test your gear, test what you're going to be doing, where you're going to be doing it. Just have a run through, and of course, like, be close to your modem, or you know, if your data is the way you're going, like, just to make sure that you've got plenty of data. And but Australian internet, you know, we're stuck with it. It's not awesome.
I guess for me, streaming as an artist, I haven't done heaps. I did an early Isolate, which was amazing for the connection thing, and seeing everyone respond, and people that I'd be like, oh, I haven't seen you in a long time. That's nice to hear from you. But I haven't done much since personally as an artist, but I've done like probably nearly 100 live streams in this room since we, well, maybe not 100, but kind of getting there. And I think that's been really enjoyable, a really enjoyable experience, because people, artists come in here and they're like, oh, what's going on? And it's a very different performance to a gig, but we still do have an audience there, and there's people upstairs, and they can still kind of converse through the glass between songs and stuff. And then it's also going live, and it's high production value, and that's been super fun to build, and kind of, I guess, necessary for all the reasons we talked about. And it's still fun for me because we're still growing our team internally, but also people are still learning about Small Time as a venue and as like something bigger than what it is just in this little fishbowl. So that's what I'll be spending my time doing, working on this.
Yeah. Eliza, do you think you'll incorporate?
I was like, I can't remember the question.
Oh, yeah.
That about incorporating it?
Yeah, like now that you're going to be, you've got a few shows coming up. Tell us about those shows as well.
Okay, so I've got a show at the NGV coming up, and it's on the 8th of April.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm definitely going to incorporate it more. I'm going to do a live stream looking at doing it at Theatre Royal.
Mm-hmm.
My idea is that it has accessible elements. So it'll be audio described, Auslan captioning. And I also have this idea of taking the person at home throughout the whole space. So they'll be backstage, they'll come out on stage, they'll be in the audience, and then they'll also be part of the after performance as well. So, because, I want them to feel like they're there.
Will that be live or pre-recorded?
I'm hoping to do that live. That's the dream. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. the big dream that I've got, and I've actually been looking into it, it's not that far away, is kind of that VR experience. And because I think it'd be really amazing if those accessible features could be elements that we could heighten or switch on and off. For instance, for people that have low vision or are blind, they could switch on the audio description. So the whole performance is audio described. For instance, Matt is now playing the bass. He has his head bent over, and, you know, those elements so that you get to, you know, hear what's happening. And then also have the Auslan interpreter incorporated within the performance, have them as a backup singer, have them in the band, have them as a, you know, as an inclusive collective, and also for that feature to be something that you could either switch on and off if you need it, or make it bigger because maybe you have low vision and you are deaf. Mm-hmm. So making the size bigger. If you have autism, you might want the lighting to be lowered or the sound lowered. So that's the dream, that we could have features that are for us. Yeah. That, you know, because unfortunately what ends up happening is that if you try and do it all, then why should somebody that is deaf go to a relaxed performance and see an Auslan interpreter and have a relaxed performance as well, when that's not something that they need? Yeah. That in itself is, again, exclusion in a way, that they're not getting to experience the way that they need. So individual, tailored, accessible features is my dream.
That's amazing.
And who knows?
You can achieve all of it and more. That's amazing. I'm curious about how you approach the streams when you're performing. Is it, or like, should we approach them as something different, like a different form to our live performances? Or, like, is it a different form entirely, the stream performance, or is it one and the same?
I think it's different.
It's different.
It's different.
Yeah. What sort of things change?
Just the interaction is like the biggest thing, and I guess we've been talking about ways about how the accessibility and the interaction can be changed, or, you know, become something more than it is with live streaming at the moment, because people want it to be like a gig, I think, but it's not really. It's kind of like a film clip, like a live clip that you've thought about and pre-produced, and they're all things that you need to think about, rather than, it's kind of very different to what you think about when you go to play a gig. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
I think even some of the very early gigs that I did over Isolate, or because I had a few mishaps with my gear in the early days. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but a few of it, my cousin's kids are staying with us, so my little nieces, and even found it super different with family in the room than doing it just in my own personal space, because when there's other humans, like, physically in the space with you, you want to connect with them. You're singing to them. But I find when I'm doing a live stream, it's better to want to look straight down the barrel of the camera. Like, I want to connect with you through the camera, through the thing. And so it was really, I ended up kind of not feeling like I wanted to do live streams if I was doing it to humans. Like, it's kind of, I wanted one or the other. Yeah. Because I wanted to, make sure that connection was there, that I was being able to, like, really, really give myself to the audience, I think, in that way.
And what are your thoughts on monetization of the streams? Either sort of ticketing or sponsored streams, using it as another revenue stream. Have any of you played monetized streams?
No, I haven't.
No.
I think it's a great way to, you know, to compensate for not playing a show or something like that. There's so many different ways you could think about it. There's, like, you know, you could set up a ticket make it a donation through, which is what we do for a lot of our shows here through Eventbrite, or there's you can overlay like a Patreon on the stream, or it doesn't have to be, or it could be a restricted stream to people who pay for tickets. Like, there's lots of options, and there's so much you could expand on. I think that, or the industry can expand on, and probably should and will eventually. But yeah, absolutely, it should be monetized.
Yeah, because when touring obviously just completely fell apart, and that's just such a huge revenue stream for artists, it sort of felt like, looking at streaming as a potential avenue could be really helpful.
I know, I was stoked to pay ticket fees to watch live streams. I was like, yes, artists, take my money. And I was also really worried, and it took me a little while to do my first live stream, because I was worried that as artists, we kind of already do so much work for next to nothing, and I was really worried about people and their livelihoods and artists and that. And I think I was like, I didn't want us to devalue ourselves by giving that so freely, but at the same time, we needed to share. And I realised, in my song that I wrote about the pandemic, I didn't realise how badly my ego needed love from that audience. And so, like we need that connection, whether it's an ego thing or whether it's just a soul connection. I don't know, but that's definitely, either way, it depends on what it is, eh?
Yeah. Jake, are there any questions in the audience or from Facebook?
Multiple questions, actually. Hi, guys. I just wanted to say thank you. You've all done such a great job talking about the subject. I just wanted to ask, so what are, from Emily, actually, I know that you're here sort of mediating, but what are the best ways to attract people? Actually, this could be for everyone. What's the best way to attract people to your stream, and what methods have you used for promotion?
They're not sort of dissimilar to normal avenues, I suppose, using, just social media, sort of going live potentially beforehand and using that as an opportunity to promote your live stream. I think sort of piggybacking off the back of another stream is a really helpful thing. So if you are doing, I don't know, a Isolate delivered live, art centre, whatever it might be, sort of garnering new followers and audience members, and then using those and sort of becoming part, like it's sort of networking, I guess, or community rather, a less sort of yuck.
So a mix of shameless self-promotion.
I think so. And also, like, if you're using it sort of as a gig, then you're kind of, just involving other people and communities.
I was thinking about that today, actually. Just localizing it through, somewhere like this or Isolate, rather than like avoiding that shameless self-promotion that you might be feeling by just going live. You could partner with another artist and cross-promote that way, or, it could be a venue, a cause. I think that's a great way of just connecting and like kind of working it through together and collaborating that way, for sure.
And venues, just different partners, like, and particularly because borders are sort of fluid when you're streaming. Just being able to collaborate with people anywhere in the world is a really nice way of gaining new audiences from all over.
I think that's something that Isolate did really well, is that every time an artist would share that week, they would they would tag everyone in the Instagram or whatever. So everyone was tagging each other, and so you kind of had this like little reach effect out of being able to connect with the other artists' audiences, and particularly if it was a week where you didn't really know those artists, like it was such a good opportunity to find new artists and find new audiences.
Yeah. One more question, and then I think it's...
Okay. So I just wanted to do a quick description. We're outside of sort of a glass casing that everyone's in. All of the speakers are speaking in a glass case. We're kind of outside of that in a beautiful room with the rugs, and I'm here with about 15 other people who are all seemingly musicians and streamers as well. So that's just a quick description of that. Also, one question was, is multi-streaming worthwhile? What websites would you choose to actively try to promote your stream, do multi-streaming on?
Yeah.
What's multi-streaming?
Do you mean to like
cross-platform?
Oh yeah.
Facebook,
Basically,
YouTube?
I've seen
At
that
the
you
same
can,
time.
Yeah, you can put your performance on Instagram, Facebook at the same time, YouTube, all that sort of stuff. I haven't gone into it because I think Emily was right. The internet in Australia is piss poor, so don't risk it. Maybe. Just wanted to see your opinions.
I've kind of thought about this heaps from doing streams here, and I've learned that Instagram's very hard to stream to unless you do it straight from your phone. So we've kind of cancelled that out here at Small Time just because it doesn't work with the programs. Facebook and YouTube are really great, and there's lots of back-end stuff that you can do to kind of personalize it, and so they're the two that we go to. We don't do all of ours to YouTube, but I think both of them at the same time is a great option. And also on Facebook, you can, which is what we're doing now, you can cross-post to we're streaming to our Small Time page as well as the Brunswick Music Festival page, so you can set all that up within Facebook as well.
Yeah, some of them are not very easy to cross-platform, cross-stream to. So work around some artists with having multiple phones and sort of streaming to TikTok on one, Instagram on another, so buy lots of phones. But we've run out of time. I want to thank again Eliza, James and Allara for your generous insights. So incredible. I've learnt so much. You're amazing. Please follow them on their socials and go and see them live and on your screens. Thanks to Small Time, Brunswick Music Festival and Milk Records. There's another talk coming up after this one, so stick around and stay tuned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks. And thanks to this lovely audience.
Yes, thanks for coming
nice to see
down.
faces.